Hello everyone, thanks for joining me on today's review. I'd like to explore this aircraft which rarely receives much attention, which is the Northrop F-5C, or better known the Skoshi Tiger. Now, this particular F-5, specifically from 10th Fighter Commando Squadron, also this particular aircraft played a role in the project of Skoshi Tiger. To understand why the Northrop F-5 deserves a place of honor on any aviation enthusiast shelf, we should start at the beginning. So we'll discuss the initial chapters of this aircraft, then we'll circle back to the core subject of the Skoshi Tiger. So the first F-5 Tiger test flight was held at Edwards Air Force Base in California on July 31st, 1963, with the first delivery to the U.S. Air Force in 1964. The single-seat aircraft called the N-156 fighter was initially designed to operate from the U.S. Navy escort carriers. After this carrier class was retired, Northrop continued developing the single-seat N-156F fighter and also the two-seat N-156T combat trainers. At around the same time, the Air Force was looking to replace its Lockheed T-33 trainers, and that had been basically used since 1940s, and the N-156T looked like the best option. It was this design that came to be known as the T-38 Talon. Northrop continued to develop the N-156F until the Military Assistance Program propelled it into the full-scale development and production for the Air Force and the American allies. This came the F-5 Tiger, which is still actively flown by other countries like Brazil, Mexico, and Taiwan. South Korea. Other notable operators include Iran, Switzerland, and Spain. The initial F-5A Freedom Fighter was a single-seat, a tactical fighter, lightweight, supersonic jet fighter built for simple maintenance and economy of operation, basically optimized for air-to-ground missions. The aircraft powered by two General Electric J85 JE13 turbofan engines. The maximum speed was Mach 1.4 at 30,000 feet, with a service ceiling of, according to the research, is 50,000 feet, and a range of over 1,300 miles. Excuse me. Um, the F-5B was originally developed as a two-seat training aircraft that replaced some of the F-5A's armaments, and also the internal space within the instructor cockpit. So, to provide an overview of the different variants of this aircraft, let me break it down for you. So, the F-5A/B Freedom Fighter, those models representing the first generation of this fighter family. Then the F-5E/F, those are the upgrade versions of the F-5, introduced later and often referred as the Tiger II. Then the F-5C/D, basically a modified versions of the F-5A, for combat evaluation in Vietnam. Although it wasn't an official designation for the aircraft, the Skoshi Tiger name was given to this program, not the aircraft themselves. Um, Although it was sometimes used to refer to these specific F-5s, the subject will be elucidated in more detail shortly. Just bear with me, folks. So, meanwhile, the T-38 has been used by the Air Force and Air Education and Training Command since 1961, serving as a trainer for frontline fighter and to train pilots and other Air Force officers, as well as the NASA. Have used those T-38s to train their astronauts. Um, um, you know, The NASA, used T-38 because they were training their astronauts, requiring as little as 2,300 feet of runways to train their astronauts to land. The T-38 can also reach an altitude of 30,000 feet in just 1 minute. Since I'll be covering the T-38 topic later, it would not make sense for me to cover the subject in this video. But rest assured, we will be discussing the subject of the T-38 in a subsequent review. Anyways, back to the point of the Skoshi Tiger. So, what was the rationality of the U.S. Air Force behind the Skoshi Tiger project? Well, let's dive into it. In October 1965, the U.S. Air Force began a 5 months combat evaluation of the F-5A in Southeast Asia, titled Skoshi Tiger. May some of you wondering where this word came from. Well, was named by Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. The name Skoshi Tiger is a Japanese for a little tiger, and to investigate further, the term Skoshi, often misspelled as a Skoshi, it is a Japanese word meaning small, and it was adopted by an American serviceman in Japan during the Korean War. By 1965, the Northrop F-5 Freedom Fighter light fighter bomber had already been successfully, exported, being used by an order for over a dozen air forces. However, some critics claim that although the Department of Defense was eager to promote the aircraft for overseas sales, the U.S. Air Force had not ordered any F-5s. To answer these critics and further prove their capabilities of the aircraft, Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. Now, speaking about the Robert McNamara, uh, just to give you a brief overview about the Robert McNamara. So, Robert McNamara, who served as a Secretary of Defense under President John F. Kennedy, and Lyndon B. Johnson. Correct me if I get that wrong, folks. During the Vietnam War, he faced a considerable criticism for his management style and decision making, and particularly his handling of the war itself. Many critics, both during and after the war, blamed McNamara's for his role in the escalation of the conflict. But anyways, moving on. So McNamara's ordered an operational evaluation of the F-5 in Southeast Asia under a project named Skoshi Tiger. On July 22nd, 1965, the 4503 Tactical Fighter Squadron Provisional was formed at Williams Air Force Base with 12 F-5Cs. This variant was simply an F-5A with a few modifications, including in a flight refueling capability, the addition of the armor plating, and some changes in avionics and ordnance fits. The squadron left Williams on October 22nd and arrived at the Bain Hua. 4 days later, flying its first combat missions later the same day, the combat evaluation was planned to last just in over 4 months, after which the aircraft would then return home. And 12 aircraft were delivered for trials to the 4503 Tactical Fighter Squadron. And after doing some, as I've mentioned, some drastic modification, for example, with the probe and a drogue, uh, aerial refueling equipment, plus using armor plating materials, and also other improved instruments, the aircraft were redesignated as the modified F-5C. These aircraft, they performed combat duty in the Vietnam, flying more than 3,500 sorties, particularly from the 3rd Tactical Fighter Wing at Bain Hua Air Base, basically in South Vietnam. The objective of Skoshi Tiger was to evaluate the combat effectiveness of the F-5 Tiger aircraft in the real world conditions during the Vietnam War. However, two aircraft were lost in the combat, though declared a success, but the program was more a political gesture than a serious consideration of the type for the U.S. service. From April 1966, the aircraft continued operations as a 10th Fighter Commando Squadrons with their number boosted to 17 aircraft following Skoshi Tiger. Well, um, the other thing is Philippines Air Force acquired the F-5A and the B models in 1965, putting 23 into service. These aircraft, along with the remanufactured F-8 Crusaders, eventually replaced the F-86 Sabre in the air defense and the ground attack roles. The evaluation included a deployment to Da Nang, which is kind of hard to pronounce, folks, from January 1st, 1966, for experience in the forward operating base operations and missions over North Vietnam. The Skoshi Tiger evaluation came to an end on March 9, 1966. This squadron having flown 2,093 sorties from Bien Hoa and 571 from Da Nang. In total of, we're talking 3,116 combat flying hours. Only one aircraft was lost during the evaluation period, and another 16 aircraft were damaged, and 42 sorties aborted due to the technical problems. The evaluation was deemed as a success, as a recent increase in the U.S. strength had just been authorized. It was decided that the F-5 unit, renamed as a 10th Fighter Squadron, would stay in the South Vietnam. The F-5 main disadvantage in the combat in Vietnam was found to be its relatively short range and endurance. However, at the time, it was good load carrying capability in terms of survivability and cheapness. Eventually, persuaded the U.S. to supply the type to the Republic of Vietnam Air Force in a large numbers, and the aircraft became the Republic of Vietnam Air Force most potent weapon from 1967 and onwards. Folks, I'm trying to make everything short as possible, so I don't want to bore you guys. So now, with all that historical outline, let's evaluate the model impressions. To begin with, this is from HobbyMaster, of course, in 1/72nd scale. The model number is HA33003. Well, I'm really struck by the amount of details added on this model. I'm struck, first of all, by the accurate markings and insignia of the Vietnam era. For example, the host of the mission marks on the side of the fuselage. Well, typically this aircraft carried a mission markings because the aircraft was flying 4 times a day and was kept busy. So kudos for HobbyMaster to capture those minor details. I think for any manufacturer to capture those intricate details on the model required incredible research and skill. And also the result is a truly outstanding on this particular example. Um, Overall, the quality of this particular Vietnam era camouflage, which I'm a big fan, uh, especially on the F4 Phantoms. The balance of it is flawlessly executed, and also the cockpit details are dialed in, and of course it comes with a pilot figure. You can have the pilot seated in the cockpit or elsewhere as you prefer, plus with the 2 sets of removable canopies. Next, speaking about the armament, you'll get a centerline fuel tank plus another 2 painted metallic silver fuel tanks under each pylon. Um, This aircraft carried a lot of fuel. Well, as we all know, because the F-5C involved extended range requirements during that project, which is a Skoshi Tiger. Plus, you'll get the 4 Mk-81 or Mk-82. They're basically general purpose bombs, or the BLU-1 incendiary. Additionally, HobbyMaster gives you an external removable refueling probe, which I will talk about it momentarily. Basically, you can install it with it or without it. Um, Located on the left side of its forward fuselage, which is really an excellent feature and definitely aligns with the vision. And even HobbyMaster captured the dual cannons mounted on the nose, so props for them to capture all those details. Overall, the proportions depicted are pretty accurately represented. The formation collision lights are also really nicely done. The chrome finish on the lip of the air intakes, it's dialed in. Um, excuse me, folks. The aft engine nozzles, they're kind of generic dark gray. Well, I think they're okay at certain extent, since the F5 engines do not have pedals or actuators like what we've seen on the F-15 or the F-16s and so on and so forth, which makes it easier for HobbyMaster to make. Speaking about easy to make, it would have been nice if they add a little touch of silver titanium on it. I think that would bring an extra sense of finish to the model. Well, that's just a thought here, unless you're trying to be a nitpicking about things. Moving on, as usual with HobbyMaster models, this model includes a display stand and interchangeable landing gear, allowing you to showcase it in either a ground or a flight configuration based on your needs. However, do note that the refueling probe piece, I'm not quite sure, folks, what the deal is regarding the installation part. But what I did, I made a faithful decision for myself. I just used a itty bitty of blue tack on each side, so I can just mount it on the side of the fuselage. So it's just tacked on for now. Not a permanent fixture though. And I've looked in the package box, and clearly there were no instructions for the installation, and that's the only downside, you know, of this model. So fingers crossed that the intro shot was a successful, and hoping every detail on the model was captured. And finally, what do I think about this model? I definitely recommend to pick this model. Well, beyond just being a model, in my opinion, it's another symbol of Vietnam history, and this model offers a tangible representation of a Vietnam War and different perspective involved. I've been a fan of this aircraft since when I was a little kid. I think the F-5 looks like a fighter aircraft, aggressive from every angle. And for those of you who are fans of the F5 in particular, um, as prices is trending upwards, I would say consider adding this piece of history to your collection. And I'm glad that I picked this release and joined in my collection as a newest acquisition of the F5. I do have quite a few F5s in my collection. I think this particular F5 complete the picture of uh, of my collection. Um, it just brought me a joy. As you're watching this video to this proximity, I think pretty soon this release will be highly sought after, so don't wait. All right, lovely people, I'll leave it at that. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and hoping this video was a beneficial, and if so, don't forget liking. That would help the algorithm, and please consider subscribing. That would definitely help me to keep my mission going, and also um, that definitely would have an impact in a positive way. Beyond being subscribers, I love to have you guys on board. I highly encourage you, if you guys have any thoughts or comments, please feel free to share them in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your feedback. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this episode. Until next time, thanks for watching, everyone.